One Proxmox node is a server. A Proxmox cluster is a strategy. If one box dies and everything goes down with it, that is not high availability. That is a single point of failure with better branding. I've spent enough time in IT to know that the phrase, "it should fail over automatically," is usually followed by a room full of people trying not to make eye contact. You're watching Fast How To, and today, we're going to make Proxmox do the stuff that everybody actually bought it for. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a Proxmox cluster, add additional nodes, explain the networking that makes it work, migrate a VM between hosts, and enable high availability so one hardware failure doesn't take the whole thing down with it. I'm also going to show you one of the easiest ways to break live migration when all your hosts don't have the same CPU, because that catches people constantly. In the previous video in the series, we moved VM storage off the hypervisor and onto shared storage using TrueNAS and NFS. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. That was the prerequisite. This is the payoff. Because once multiple Proxmox nodes can all see the same VM disks, those VMs stop being tied to one physical host. And that's where this stops being a box and starts becoming a platform. A cluster is not magic. It's a group of Proxmox hosts that know about each other, can coordinate with one another, and all have access to the same storage. That gives you three things that people actually care about. You can manage multiple hosts as one platform, you can move VMs between them, and if you configure it properly, workloads can restart elsewhere when a node fails. That's the part people mean when they say high availability, usually with a lot more confidence than precision. Before we click anything, let's talk about networking, because this is one of those places where you can make a mess very quickly. In my setup, I physically separate storage traffic, cluster traffic, and VM and management traffic. Now that does not mean that you need my exact layout. It just means that the traffic that matters should not be competing with random client traffic if you want predictable behavior. For the cluster itself, the real requirement is simple. What matters is that the nodes can talk to each other reliably and consistently. That's it. Not novelty, not complexity, not suffering. Reliable communication between nodes. If you don't have a spare interface for cluster traffic, a dedicated VLAN can work. But trust me on this. If your networking is sloppy here, the rest of this is about to get a lot more educational than you wanted.
Quick detour. If this series is useful to you and you want to support the channel, that's the least annoying way to do it. Patrons get early access to videos with no ads, downloadable code and configs, and all the smart home challenges and questionable architectural decisions that don't quite make it into the final edit because I'm trying to keep these videos under 3 hours long. It's optional, but appreciated. All right, back to it.
Before you create the cluster, make sure of three things. First, your nodes can all reach each other over the network that you intend to use for cluster communication. Second, the time is correct on all nodes. And third, all nodes can see the same shared storage. If any of those are wrong, do not keep clicking and hope that Proxmox will respect your optimism. It will not. Start on the node that will initialize the cluster. Go to Data Center, Cluster, then Create Cluster. Give it a name that makes sense. Make sure it makes sense, because changing it later is not the sort of mistake that you can correct in 30 seconds. Choose the cluster network deliberately. This is where Proxmox expects to find the other nodes. And if you point this at the wrong network because the IP looked familiar, You're about to have a deeply personal learning experience filled with creative new profanities. Create the cluster. Congratulations! That first node just started the club. Now click the cluster at the top left, then click Cluster, then click Join Information. Click Copy Information. On each additional host, go to Cluster and join the existing one. Point it at the correct node, paste in the join information, provide the correct password. And yes, if you paste the wrong thing into the wrong box, Proxmox will be more than happy to let you learn that the hard way. Join the nodes one at a time and verify that all nodes in the cluster see one another before moving on to the next one. At this point, you have not built high availability. What you have built is the structure that makes it possible. That distinction matters. A cluster is the platform. High availability is a behavior that you configure on top of that platform. People blur those together constantly. They're not the same thing. Now for the fun part. Pick a VM that lives on shared storage. That part matters. If the VM disk is still local, none of this is going to be impressive. Choose Migrate. Pick another node. Send it. This is the moment where the architecture stops being theoretical. The VM is moving from one host to another without needing you to rebuild it, restore it, or explain downtime like it was somehow intentional. That is what shared storage plus clustering buys you. Not vibes, actual mobility. Now, let's talk about one of the easiest ways to ruin this. If your cluster nodes don't all have matching CPUs and your VM type is too specific, migration can fail. This happens because the destination host may not support the exact feature set that the source host was exposing to the VM. That means if you've got mixed hardware in your cluster, CPU type stops being a setting that you ignored and starts being one of the reasons that migration either works or doesn't. The safe move for mixed environments is to choose a CPU that preserves compatibility across the nodes that you actually have. Not just whatever looked fastest, because fast is not useful if the VM refuses to move. If you're designing around migration and high availability, compatibility matters way more than bragging rights. You are not tuning a gaming PC to impress strangers on the internet with benchmark scores. What you're doing is building a platform that is supposed to keep working when hardware does something that hardware has done since the beginning of time. Fail. Now that the cluster exists and the VM can move, we can talk about high availability. High availability in Proxmox is not magic either. It means that the cluster can restart a VM on another host if the current one fails. That's the key phrase. Restart on another host. Not teleportation, not sorcery, not zero consequences. But it's a hell of a lot better than everything is dead until I get home. Let's take a look. Add the VM to HA, set its state, verify that the cluster sees it correctly. And now you've crossed the line from multiple hosts into actual platform behavior. High availability does not mean there is no interruption. What it means is that the interruption is smaller, recovery is automatic, and it is a lot less dependent on you noticing the failure first. That matters. Because people hear high availability and they imagine uninterrupted perfection. What you're really buying is a system that responds to failure in a controlled way instead of just falling over and waiting for you to fix it. And that is still a huge upgrade. While you're down there subscribing and performing all the usual YouTube rituals, I've got a viewer survey linked in the video description. Tell me what matters in your smart home, what gear you're using, what problems you're trying to solve, and whatever feedback you've got for the channel. There's also an Ask Me Anything section, which is your chance to hand me future problems in a mostly organized format. Today, from that section, not a question, but I like the videos. How many do you do a week? I love it. Not a question, then proceeds to ask a question. Anyway, the answer is 0.5, 0.3. Allow me to lend some context. First off, I'm a perfectionist. They say that perfection is the enemy of progress. I've heard it. I've said it. I believe it. And with this channel, I'm unfortunately proving it. I spend hours making sure that I have all my talking points in order. I tweak each and every little thing. I spend dozens of hours making sure that the system images and tutorials and screen recordings are all correct. I'm here to teach, to help people learn how to do things, help people understand advanced concepts. Providing incorrect information does not do anybody any favors. Then I have to film me talking to you. Then I have to edit that. I have to cut out every time I say or all the times I have to repeat a line because my dog barked or I sneezed. Then I have to find the 18 seconds that I want to use from like 2 hours worth of screen recordings to show how to do something because I did it wrong the first 6 times and there's progress bars that you don't want to watch in this video, or I had to research something and tons of other associated nonsense. Then I spend hours picking just the right music track, spend more hours making the thumbnail and coming up with the video title. Then I have to upload all of that, write the video description, gather up all the links for all the stuff that I talked about in the video, and then finally I get to publish it so that hopefully YouTube decides it's good enough to even be shown to you, and then hopefully you click on it and listen to me answer your not a question. As a point of reference, Simon from Simon Says Home Assistant and I were chatting the other day. He asked me how long I spent making my previous video. I sat down and tried to figure it out. Really thought about each and every part of it and how much time I had invested in that one video. That number surprised even me. Somewhere in the 45 to 50 hour range was about as close as I could come up with. Now, that's not too bad, right? Most people work somewhere in the range of 40 to 50 hours a week at a full-time job, so I could do one a week, right? Let's take a look at how much I made from this channel in February 2026. $68.90 US. Guess I have to keep my day job of working 45 to 50 hours a week. Oh yeah, and I have a wife and a 3-year-old that I really enjoy spending time with. Hopefully this helps to explain why it takes me several weeks to make one video. I am open to suggestions from anyone on ways that I can speed things up. I would really like to make more videos and spend less time doing it, so please tell me in the comments what you would do differently. All right, back on track. Today, we did 5 things. We created the cluster. We added more hosts to that cluster. We discussed cluster networking. We migrated a VM. And we enabled high availability. Along the way, we even went on a side quest to avoid turning CPU compatibility into a completely unnecessary problem. That is a solid day's work. Now that the cluster is in place, the next logical step is putting Home Assistant on it properly. So, in the next video, I'm going to show you how to install Home Assistant as a VM on Proxmox, and then we're going to restore the config from a backup so that we don't have to manually rebuild the whole thing by hand like it's some sort of character building exercise or something. That's where this is going to start becoming a smart home instead of a very organized science project. One host is convenient. A cluster is intentional. And once other people care if it breaks, intentional starts to matter a lot more than convenient.